A very good evening. Welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Mfundo Mabalane, standing in for Clement tonight. On the show tonight, we'll be discussing Chidimma Adetshina's citizenship, without a doubt one of the biggest stories that has dominated headlines since she was unveiled as one of the Miss SA pageant contestants. The story continues to develop. Just this afternoon, Chidimma announced that she was withdrawing from the pageant following the statement from the Home Affairs Minister on their preliminary findings that there's prima facie evidence that Chidimma's mother could have committed fraud as well as identity theft. We'll be speaking to the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs. And then a bit later on in the show, we'll be in conversation with Police Minister Senzo Mchunu on his plans to address the high crime rate levels in the country. Criminals have become more brazen, many have seen, with extortion rackets now firmly established in all industries. If you're talking clubs, they're there. Restaurants, construction, taxis, even Spaza shops now are paying protection fees to these criminals if they want to continue to operate. This has potential to, of course, cripple our economy and leave us at the mercy of thugs. Essentially a situation where the underworld runs a parallel state. We're not being alarmist. It's that worrying. Now, we'll also close off the show with ANC-NEC member Donald Silamulele following their intense deliberations and reflections at their Lekgotla on their electoral outcomes from this year's May elections. We heard from the ANC Secretary General a bit earlier on today that they've narrowed down the issues that led to the significant decline to 3. It's the economic crisis, governance weaknesses, and major organizational problems. The ANC, of course, says this is a very significant moment for them to internalize the very strong message sent by the electorate to the party. But first, my comment. All right, so Chidimma Adetshina's story has truly evolved into something I'm certain not many people thought it could morph into. We move from citizens raising concerns on just the fact that she was born of a Nigerian father and Mozambican mother. There was almost no question around whether her parents over the years that they were in the country prior to her birth could have possibly applied for South African citizenship through naturalization. We have now reached this point, though, where the Ministry of Home Affairs has released its preliminary findings and the young lady has withdrawn from the Miss SA pageant. There are, of course, more questions than answers at this point. But identity theft, though, has brought many people's lives to a standstill, costing them many opportunities. You know, what comes to mind when one looks at this matter at this early stage of the investigation, because it must be emphasized that nothing has been concluded as yet, no guilt has been pronounced, but nevertheless, what comes to mind is the Lubisi report, which confirmed issues of theft, fraud and corruption within the Department of Home Affairs, dating many, many years back, where in excess of 45,000 visas and permits were issued fraudulently just between 2014 and 2021. The question is, can Home Affairs use this moment to clean house? Well, there's a new broom, perhaps it can sweep clean. The question we're asking, though, tonight on the show is, what do you make of Chidimma Adetshina's decision to withdraw from Miss SA's competition? Please send us your WhatsApp voice notes. Our number is 078-459-1897. Remember, do share your name and surname and where you're sending the voice note from. And please keep it at 30 seconds or send us an X on @face_the_nation SABC. All right, more news on the other side of this break. We must certainly be speaking to the chairperson on the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has issued a stern warning to individuals who point guns at police, stating that officers will respond with equal force. There have been concerns regarding the increasing number of suspects being killed by police, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal. Mchunu has expressed a very strong commitment to reducing crime and has outlined significant plans to address the issue. The minister is facing the nation today. Good evening, Minister. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, this particular stance has divided society, where you say that you will retaliate if you have people shooting at police. Just talk to us about this position.
What has happened is that some people who are experts in monitoring peace and stability in the country, particularly in KZN, some observers and some journalists have raised concerns about policing, I would say, with regard to the aspect where a number of criminals who exchanged fire with the police got killed. Then there were things like, for an example, in the Tribune, somebody wrote, police are trigger happy in KZN. Now, because that expression took it higher than any other expression that had been made or any other concern that had been raised before, we then sought to clarify the matter. And what are we saying? We are saying that expression and the accompanying concerns. One, South Africa is a democratic country, and we seek to strengthen democracy in the country. Among other things, people are free to speak and express their views. But the second thing that we are saying is that when it comes to this specific matter and the expressions, we would love a situation where such comments take the whole of the context into consideration so that when comments are made, they accommodate the actual context on two fronts. I was saying the first front, there is a context of South Africa and South Africans being deeply concerned about the rate of crime in the country. And everybody that I speak to and I've met, they are complaining about the rate of crime in their area, in a province, in a town, city, and everywhere. Even in Parliament, they are saying the rate of the crime rate is high, particularly murders, and they include other crimes, drugs and rape and so on.
Yes.
So high, and I haven't heard anyone saying it is low. That is the first context. The second context that these concerns are not taking on board is the fact that there are particular communities that are heavily affected by the activities of criminals. It's not just to say the national average, the national rate is high, provincial rate of murders is high. Look, this happens in particular communities. It affects people in those communities as individuals, as families, and as communities in their own area. Now,
so you're saying, pardon me for interjecting there, so you're saying that journalists or perhaps criminal experts are failing to contextualize by taking into account the fact that crime is high? Some could argue that, of course, in most reporting, it would be stated that crime is high. We get the rates all the time, quarterly, so crime is high. And then you say, but it must also be taken into consideration where exactly this crime is prevalent. Is that what you're saying?
And talk to those people and hear whether they too feel that police are trigger happy. It would be very interesting to hear what those people who are affected by criminality of a violent nature on a daily basis, what they would say if they were given a chance, so that the journalists who then express a view, they take their views and their feelings on board. But thirdly, they don't talk about the scenes, the actual scenes where these things happened, whether it is Langezo, whether it is Nanda and Nanda too, as it happened, whether it is Khayelitsha, where the recent incident took place. Now, what do I mean by the crime scene itself? Police get a tip-off to say there are criminals hiding, the ones that you were trying to arrest last week or so. They disappeared, but they are suspected to be in a particular house. Or in house so and so, there are people who are planning a heist, that is on cash on the road. So police then hid such information as part of intelligence. Then they go there, they then look at the situation, they assess, and they indeed confirm that, yes, indeed, we see something suspicious there. Then they get close and they announce themselves. And instead of someone coming out on getting to know that these are police, with your hands up, complying on the instructions, you answer with firing to the police. And police, they are human beings, as I say. They are not stones. And they have to defend themselves. And they are not only defending themselves for themselves, they are defending themselves for us, to protect us tomorrow. Because if they don't defend themselves now, they are going to be hit and they are going to be killed. And tomorrow we don't have anyone to defend us. Remember, they are not supplied. They are human beings. But thirdly, they are the people. They are the only people qualified to do that, to follow criminals wherever they are and apprehend them. There's any other person who has a mandate by profession, by their actual job. It is to do exactly that. Now, when they do it, we then say they are trigger happy. But look at the scene, the very crime scene afterwards. What do you find, for instance, in Kailish? 5 AK-47. What is an AK-47? It's an assault rifle. It is used in wars, where there are wars. It's an automatic, high-caliber assault rifle.
The proliferation of guns is a problem in the country, Minister. And when listening to your briefing, it seemed as though everybody cannot understand how criminals are finding it so easy to access these guns. What exactly is happening, and how broad is your investigation as to where exactly they're accessing these guns?
Yeah, so I would love that experts and journalists and everybody take all these issues on board and then see if you would come up with a conclusion that say, no, police are trigger happy, as if they are just driving down the road or running down the road, firing shots and so on, to show they are trigger happy. But let me come to your question.
I also just want to interject there, pardon me, because it seems as though this specific statement is one that you take exception to, the one of being trigger happy, the police being trigger happy. But it would be remiss of me not to state, when you said that journalists in this instance would express a view, but journalists are merely a conduit. So in most cases, they take no position on the matter. All they would be doing is, in an engagement such as ours, they would only just bring questions that ordinarily some within communities would want answered, as to whether the force is not disproportionate to the threat. And if the minister then states that no, it was equal to the threat, then it's understandable. But in most cases, the journalists would merely bring the questions that society, who doesn't have the opportunity to be in a conversation with the minister, but not that they've taken a view.
I'm happy to take that point, but I'm saying, in expressing that view, it needs to be contextualized and not taken out of context, because it throws a blind spot on the work of the police. And that's why I say we're in a democracy, people are allowed. But once you have expressed, you need to expect that you will be contested. So I'm saying I'm fine with what they are saying, but I'm then saying let us take the whole context, because if we don't do so, police are going to be increasingly under pressure in terms of how they are being seen, how they are being projected to the community at this particular stage. Now, let me then go to your question. Firstly, in South Africa, there's an unacceptably high proliferation of availability of drugs. Now, where there are drugs, you must know there will be guns. And where there are both guns and drugs, there will be murder. And where there is murder, where there are all these three, it's very likely that you are going to find something foreign. It will be either in the form of human beings or in the form of the origins of such drugs. But also, of course, in South Africa, there are people who are manufacturing drugs. We know that, and we're working on that. That's why at Roblestal, we found a factory that is producing drugs to the tune of 2 billion.
Yes.
And so on. So this thing is together, and it is a worrying scene. And where do these guns come from? That is also a war on its own. Yes, proliferation of illegal and unlicensed firearms. That thing, it shouldn't be treated as cell phones. And we're getting to a level where we treat guns the same as we treat cell phones, that everybody needs a cell phone. And this is what is happening. And it's unacceptable. Mm-hmm. It's unacceptable. And we are going to look at this. We are going to tackle this right from the front, because everybody is carrying an illegal gun. You know, you are breaching the law. Mm-hmm. You are breaking the law.
Minister, there was a comprehensive report that was done. I remember this is quite a long time ago, in the era of Barry Bateman, when he was once a reporter. It related, I believe, to Brooklyn Police Station, where it was established that there were guns that would have been kept by police stations that would be released and sold to criminals. When doing your investigations now, you're fairly new in this portfolio, but just now, when you have been briefed, have you been briefed of some conduct by officials within the force who perhaps work or collude with criminals?
That is happening. And it does happen from time to time, because what you are referring to is something that is real. It has happened in the past. But look, any policeman and any policewoman and any official in SABC who is doing this, no, they are breaking the law. And they don't belong to the community of men and women in the blue. They are not part of us, those. They are an embarrassment. They are the ones that we need to get rid of as soon as possible, mm-hmm. because they are bad members of the family.
Because they're essentially killing society, because they are releasing guns that kill us in society when we have essentially entrusted them with their lives. Police are meant to protect communities. And if they release guns, like you say, it's not releasing stationery to criminals. You're releasing guns which will ultimately kill us.
It is irresponsible to do that. It is unlawful to do that. And it's an offense to do that. And therefore, anywhere where we come across that, and anyone that we will come across within the police, we will arrest.
Mm-hmm. Minister, in the interest of time,
discipline.
Pardon me, just in the interest of time, I want to take you to the extortion racket. We've been hearing of it. It started off in KZN. It was just the construction industry. It's moved on to the Western Cape, particularly in the city of Cape Town. When we talk of the extortion racket now, we're talking about protection fees that are paid in clubs, Spaza shops, taxis, construction, restaurants. We've even seen one specific restaurant closed down on Long Street this very week because the owner could no longer pay. He decided that he refuses to actually pay these extortion fees. What is the police doing about this? Because it really means at this point we will all be at the mercy of criminals.
There are people in this country who are trying to turn South Africa into something else, where mafias rule the day, where certain individuals who deem themselves to be powerful, to be untouchable, do as they please, and they engage on all this. We are saying we are getting ready, and we are getting to confront this head-on action. Because if we don't do that, if the police don't do that, very soon South Africa will become something, and we're saying it's not going to happen. Now, we are going to outline, when we launch this, we don't want to talk too much, when this will be at the end of our preparation, and we're getting there quite close, because there's no reason why a restaurant employing people in a situation where people are looking for employment, and then there's one person whose stomach is so big and so large that he must demand extortion, even if it costs closure and end of jobs of so many people and get so many families hungry. Now, we are not going to accept that. And the good thing is that these people are known, but unfortunately, they've been allowed to be around for quite some time, for some reason.
Because communities are fearful. They're fearful. You find that
yes,
these people operate as some sort of security company, and they approach the business people.
What is good is that amidst their fear, they are beginning to come out to say, indeed, we are confirming it is there. And in some cases, they are giving us names of people. That so and so. But even though when we say, please go and open a case because we are not going to be able to arrest and so on, when there is no case opened. But we understand as well the fear and everything. Mm-hmm. There's a way that we are going to deal with this because we are getting concrete information about individuals and about their activities. Mm-hmm. We are going to confront it.
All right, Minister, not to force you to almost release some of these plans prematurely, but let's talk about devolution of policing powers. I mean, we know that specifically in the city of Cape Town, the mayor there has been advocating for the devolving of some of these powers, and they're quite optimistic that your appointment to this ministry will lead to greater collaboration and for them to start helping with investigations. Just talk to us about those plans to give them a more greater role or power to actually assist.
You are using two terms, collaboration and devolution. Let me talk about collaboration. We have said at national level, we have police, South African Police Service. They don't have all the capacity to deal with all the crime everywhere, every time. Mm. We recognize that and we concede. Now, we are going down to provinces to say, what do you have in terms of capacity to fight crime? There's provincial governments. They will say, we do have police forums. We do have some officials, some budget. We go to metros who have metro police. They will tell us, we have personnel, we have equipment, but all these people, they have will to fight crime. What is the public saying? The public saying, government is failing to protect us. They don't care. They don't say local government is failing. They don't say provincial. They don't say national. They just say government is failing. Mm. So we are then saying, let us stand aside, we who are government, in all three spheres, and we are standing aside. This is what we are engaging at the Western Cape and the city of Cape Town on. And we are agreeing that we are standing aside. What do we stand aside for? To identify our capacity combined. And then we then say, this is our capacity combined. And this is how let's agree how we are going to use this capacity to fight criminals, because criminals are on the other side of the fence. Mm-hmm. And this is what we are doing, but we're very soon going to open up the whole and launch the whole project. It's just in a few coming weeks, and then we'll be launching it practically and no longer talk about it. Now, on the other issue that you're talking about, devolution. Now, remember that we were a constitutional state, we have laws and so on. When that matter was raised, I said, it's a matter that we can talk about. Yeah. Look at the laws that are there, find a way in terms of how best we can do. But the main thing which is also immediate and urgent, is to fight crime. And we don't need to wait devolution before we fight crime or completion of those discussions to fight crime. It's an urgent matter because people are dying now and they want us to fight crime now.
That's honestly quite heartening because you are right. Citizens don't care which tier of government is actually responsible for what. If there's crime, they want it resolved. If it's the metro that can assist, whether it's provincial government or national, they don't want this operating in silos. They just want problems resolved. Minister, thank you very much for your time this evening. That's Police Minister Senzo Mchunu speaking to us. More news on the other side of this break. Stay with us. Welcome back to Face the Nation. I'm Mfundo Mabalane, standing in for Clement Manyathela. Now, Miss South Africa contestant Chidimma Adetshina has withdrawn from the competition, citing safety concerns. The Department of Home Affairs is investigating possible fraud and identity theft in connection to her citizenship. The chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs has raised concerns about collaboration between department officials and criminal syndicates. This has led to the establishment of the Lubisi Commission, which has made recommendations for implementation. Chabane joins us live via Teams. Good evening, Mr. Chabane. Thank you very much for joining us on Face the Nation. Firstly, your reaction to the developments thus far. Firstly, just the report that was published last night, and then the withdrawal of Ms. Adetshina.
No, evening, and thanks for having us. Well, it's unfortunate that it happened in the month of August, where we celebrate the strife of women across the globe. We note the report that has been published by the Home Affairs in relation to the issues that are subject matters throughout the country. But also we appreciate that the Sixth Parliament did make or conducted an oversight Department of Home Affairs, and we identified areas of concerns in relation to the corrupt activities that some of the officials within the department and outside who are collaborating with the syndicate, as they've outlined, are contributing to this negative posture that ravaged the corrupt activities.
So essentially, this is the tip of the iceberg. There's quite a lot that is happening within the Home Affairs Department.
Well, it's quite a lot that is happening within the Home Affairs. As we were saying that the Sixth Parliament, the Portfolio, as we have looked on their report, they conducted and have engagement with Home Affairs. And we're happy that this interaction with the commission that was established by the Minister then of Home Affairs, led by the Dr. Lubisi, made recommendation, and also strengthening the anti-corruption branch within the Home Affairs. It's a result of that interaction and recommendation by the Portfolio Committee. You will note also that there was a case which we've dealt with last week that started in 2021, which involved a person that was sentenced to 25 years in Durban. So this is an appreciation of the continuous collaboration of all law enforcement agencies, but also with the stakeholders and also the people of South Africa that have been yearning for this fight to fight this scourge of corruption, including the priorities that the president has set in his State of Nation address in all the zonas to fight against the corruption. So I think we note the progress, but we're hoping that the Portfolio Committee will receive a detailed response once the conclusion of the investigation.
Now, I'm sure, Mr. Chabane, you've seen a number of politicians have also added their voices reacting to this particular matter. But one particular politician was BOSA's leader, Musima Imani, who stated that perhaps it's time to digitize immediately, because that is probably the only way that Home Affairs will rid itself of these type of instances or this kind of conduct.
You will recall, if you're following closely the interaction, both the Portfolio Committee and Home Affairs in the Sixth Administration, that was among the decision of the committee to engage with the Home Affairs, and they've continuously implemented that. There was an announcement by the president that there's 10,000 young expectees, young people who have been recruited to look around that matter. And there's a progress around that issue that you are raising. But as I said, that there are various tools that have been employed by the Department of Home Affairs, informed by the legislation that they've put across as Parliament.
Can you take us through those tools? Because even with that announcement, it was widely welcomed that we were going to see the 10,000 youths that would assist with the move to digital. But nevertheless, how long or when exactly this will start is something that remains the question. So can you just take us through some of what has been done thus far?
One is to strengthen the anti-corruption branch by the department as a result of the concerns that we have raised as the department of the portfolio committee. But as you go back in the last 6 administration, there were a lot of arrest and exposure of corrupt activities within the Department of Home Affairs and outside the Department of Home Affairs. One of the areas which I think we must take credit is the interaction that has been brought by the Devolution Commission that has identified weaknesses within that area. And I think now there's a close look on the implementation and focus on the areas that we need to confront both as Parliament and the Department of Home Affairs. But I think we quietly acknowledged the work jointly by all the stakeholders, including the law enforcement agency that are on the ground to respond to these issues that members of the community, including media community, that have been raising on the weaknesses that have been identified at the level of
We can only hope that the Home Affairs Ministry will move with speed insofar as implementing some of those recommendations from that very important Lubisi report. Thank you very much, though, for your time this evening. That's Musa Shabani. He is the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs, speaking to us. Welcome back to Face the Nation. Thank you very much for staying with us. I'm Mfundo Mabalane standing in for Clement Manyathela this evening. Let's just recap our question. Our question for tonight is, what do you make of Chidimma Adetshina's decision to withdraw from Miss SA competition? Let's listen to some of your notes, voice notes that have already come in.
I think the South African Home Affairs should up their game in terms of confirming the nationality of individuals, because failure to do so will result in a lot of people taking advantage. Thank you. I'm Skombuzo Kababa in Kliptown.
Hi, Mfundo. Sam Aleko 3 copies. I personally would have withdrawn. I think the media has dented her confidence before she could even participate. That's unfair for this lady. Thank you.
All right, so very interesting views. Do keep them coming. The question, as we stated, is what you think of Chidimma Adetshina's decision to withdraw from the Miss SA pageant. We shift our focus, though, to this story now. After facing criticism for not fully implementing its manifesto and government policies, the ANC has introduced an outcomes and accountability framework for its 2024 manifesto. This framework will track the progress of all manifesto promises on a quarterly basis. The ANC has experienced a loss of majority for the first time since 1994 and is now aiming to regain its lost ground. ANC NEC member Donald Silamulele is facing the nation tonight. Good evening, Donald. Thank you for joining us.
Evening, Mfundo, and evening to viewers at home.
No, it's a pleasure to have you with us. It's been a difficult few days for the African National Congress, deliberating, reflecting on the very poor showing, and listening to your Secretary General a bit earlier on today. It seems the issues have been narrowed to 3, those that led to you losing your majority. Just talk us through these 3. Among them, I know, is the economic crisis.
Of course, Mfundo. Look, the fact of the matter is that, as the Secretary General would have said, we have accepted as the African National Congress that the appealing economic conditions in the country, in the main, the shortage of jobs, the prevailing poverty condition, inequality, among others, would have led to a serious situation where we actually, Mfundo, find ourselves as the African National Congress, especially in ensuring that our people lose confidence in terms of how do we then move forward in terms of voting for us or going all out to have confidence in democracy. The truth is that it has been very, very difficult in the past 5 years for our people across in the country. The cost of living has been very, very high. The COVID-19 pandemic has also impacted greatly on the lives of our people. As a result of that, the economy has not been able to grow. We have not been able to create jobs. The commitments we have made as the African National Congress as we were moving to the sixth administration could not be fulfilled, among other things. So all these other things, including and not limited to, among others, the load shedding challenge that we would have had, which would have preceded the elections.
Which some have said speaks to the governance weaknesses, because that was the second point that we heard the SG raise now, that out of the three issues, it would have been governance weaknesses and then also lastly internal problems. When we talk about the governance weaknesses, many and experts were quick to say it speaks to cadre deployment or deploying of certain individuals that might not necessarily be qualified or fit for purpose. What was decided around this particular issue when you resolved the yes, indeed, there were governance weaknesses? What was deliberated? What was stated?
Look, and I think, as you correctly said, the SG would have said that one of the critical challenges that we would have faced as the African National Congress over time, it is to how then do we deal with the whole question of monitoring and evaluating the implementation of the manifesto and the commitments we make to our people. And we would have not have started making this, acceptance during this NEC meeting. You would remember that when we went to our previous national conference in 2022, one of the key issues that we actually reflected a great deal about, which resulted us in introducing another portfolio or another position in the top 6 to add them to be top 7, was that we need to really focus in as far as monitoring of monitoring of the implementation of the decisions we're making, also of the commitments we're making to the people. That's why you see now you have a clear structured focus in the presidency, where the presidency is also doing that. But we have said that we can't relegate that only to government. We also have to do it from the party point of view. And that's why I think the SG was very clear on those particular points in terms of what would have been the reflection.
But some criticized you, pardon me for interjecting, that even when you speak of the top 7, they still criticize that if you were saying that you needed an administrative support, 1 out of the top 7, again, was taken to government.
No, that is why, that's why what we needed to do was to also create that type of a seamless relationship between what's
And pardon me, when I say 1, I mean of the deputy SGs.
Yes, that's why we needed to have such an eye at the level of, and that's why that position is of Ministry of Monitoring and Evaluation is strategically positioned in the presidency. That create a seamless relation between what the SG would have been saying today, that there will be a monitoring and evaluation in his office, and there'll be liaison and interaction between what's happening in government, in presidency, through that Ministry of Performance Monitoring and Evaluation there, and what the SG will be doing on daily basis. So they'll be complementing each other in that particular regard, because that's where we've actually been failed. Forget the issue of cadre development. As long as we deploy cadres, but we do not monitor and implement, even if you deploy the best of your best, but if you don't put tools in place to monitor them on daily basis, check the movement they are making, what implementation, quarterly reviews, are they in line with the manifesto, or they are starting to deploy to and implement their own things. That's what has made us to arrive here. And that's why the NEC said, we must stop now. We need to attend to this governance issue. We need to attend to all these other issues here and now. And we must put a comma, actually not a comma, a full stop to a situation where deployees do what they want, and we review them as we go to conferences, or we review them after a term. That has not assisted us, and that is why there's always been a serious disparity between the commitments we make and what we actually implement.
Beyond the dispensing with patronage, where perhaps sometimes people that are not qualified find themselves in these very top jobs in government, there's the other side where very qualified individuals would be actually appointed, but once there, the proximity to power and their access to resources has them changing. Because we heard the president speak of the erosion over time of the values of the African National Congress. How are you planning to deal with that, where you could have very competent cadres, if you look at them on their CVs, they're deployed into government, but something happens once they're there? Because many of you have spoken of very promising individuals. They were professionals deployed into government, but goodness, they're now out of government, tainted. Some of them are just sitting in court benches because they're now being put through the system because they stole.
And exactly the point. You would have heard how the President Ramaphosa decried that. You would have heard SG today, he would have decried that. But what we're doing, this part of why this monitoring and evaluation is, you know, to pick flashlights on time to say, Donald, you are getting out of the way. When you are not implementing this manifesto, what else are you dealing with? That may actually, because you're not only saving our commitments, you're also saving these individuals against themselves in cases where they actually may end up doing wrong, because sometimes indeed, as you correctly say, the best of the best can also, because the state power also can create problem, or responsibility itself can create problems for individuals. It doesn't matter whether you are ANC, it doesn't matter whether you are DA or whoever you may be, but when you have this type of responsibility, sometimes, as long as you're not monitored, they can create problem for you. That is why, from a party point of view, we're not going to do that just to police our deployees and also to focus on manifesto, but that will go a long way when the SG calls you that, Donald, in the course of your responsibility, we expected you to do 1, 2, 3. But we're also picking that you are doing 1, 2, 3, which may actually get you into trouble and destroy the best life or the best cadre that we are having in you. So that is, so it's going to be, that's a type of an all-rounder type of a way where we actually protect our commitments, but also protect our cadres so that we move in the same wavelength.
The Secretary General also spoke about internal problems that have resulted in the poor showing. These are long-standing when we speak of internal problems, be it the factional issues or the obsession with leadership. I mean, just at the start of the NEC meeting, he was one person that chastised some, stating that you cannot be talking about 2027 when we're still trying to come to terms with what has happened in 2024. But it seemed as though there was now already the preoccupation with leadership beyond 2027, who would become president or deputy president. How does the ANC plan to tackle this obsession with leadership? Because it's something that even the former president, Thabo Mbeki, warned against and stated that it really moves the party away from the main mission, which is to serve citizens.
Mfundo, when we met as the African National Congress in 2017, our members decried this particular issue and would have said, you need to put the ANC on a renewal path. And I think they amplified that particular voice in 2022 to say, look, we seem to be going in a different way. But what this NEC did that preceded Lekgotla was that it took a special decision that will not go to have a special NEC just before the end of August, which will deal with, one, to assess the strength of the African National Congress from branch level, assess where we are, assess what are the things that make us to have some of these challenges that we are talking about, and be able to then reflect on what then becomes the way forward. So we'll have a day where we dedicate ourselves. We are not speaking about any other thing except speaking about building the organization, the African National Congress, looking onto how do we redeem its integrity in the eyes of the people, and so forth and so on. So that's what we'll be dealing with, because we need to be specific. We need to zoom directly into where the problem is, target the problem, and resolve the problem.
But it's not to say it's not happening, in as much as you may state that it's undesirable, but it seems people are already lobbying. As journalists, we already know that who is looking to perhaps succeed the president, deputy president. So it means it's still happening. There's still clearly a preoccupation with leadership and less about service, and really internalizing the moment where the African National Congress has lost its majority.
Of course, it's a challenge, and I think we have conceded to that, and that's why the SG had spoken about it. The NEC has considered that there's a time when there is no balance between the subjective interest of individual and the advancing the objective interest of the organization. So this special NEC, we'll have to really try, we'll have to really sit and say, how do we then deal with a situation where the subjective interest of members seem to overlook and seem to trump over the objective interest of the organization. That's what we're going to be concerning ourselves with. And I can assure you, when we come out of that particular NEC meeting, whoever will sit here to reflect with you will tell you tangibles on how we're intending to deal with that as the African National
And then
Congress.
just in closing, the GNU, we heard the Secretary General stating that you are in the driver's seat as the African National Congress. But how so when you've got the DA's Helen Ziller even just questioning if it can be called a GNU, saying it's in fact a coalition between these two parties. If they pull out, there is no government.
It doesn't matter who says what. It is for you and for me to see and hear what we see. We have seen President Ramaphosa is the one who constituted cabinet. We have seen that the statement of when the government came out of the Lekgotla and what President would have said on the occasion of opening of Parliament is the ANC manifesto that he presented. And that is why the Secretary General had went to actually do a comparison, of some sort where he says, this is what would have said and this is what the President would have said. This is how we're moving. So it doesn't matter on the usage of concept by Zille or whoever. The fact of the matter is that the ANC is leading a coalition. We have invited everyone to serve in this government. That is why
coalition government. So it's a grand coalition.
It's a government of national unity. That is why you have the PAC with one seat in that government. Would you think if Zille was in charge, he would allow a situation where PAC with one seat will be in parliament, in government? No, it's not. We are in this GNU. And it's our preoccupation to see it reaching 2029, where if the majority of the people will vote, and at that particular time, we are confident that with the work that we would have done, the ANC will emerge victorious and go back to drive the advancement of the National Democratic Revolution in this particular country. So you need not worry about what Zille say. You must ask Zille, who is driving the agenda, whose manifesto is being implemented. His members have committed to the ANC manifesto, to implement the ANC manifesto, no matter what they say. But they are accounting to President Ramaphosa. They get the command from President Ramaphosa. Everything they do every day is in line with what President Ramaphosa would have pronounced. President Ramaphosa pronounced what the ANC pronounced. We are coming from this Lekgotla to dictate to them what must be implemented, and we are not shivering on that particular way. So if Zille and his people move out of the GNU, it's fine. What we know for sure is that we are going as the drivers of the GNU to ensure that we reach 2029, providing leadership to the people of South Africa, because we can't allow a vacuum. If Zille leaves out, it's up to him, it's up to her. If she remains, it's up to them. But we cannot deter in terms of implementing manifesto, because this is a commitment that we've made with
Donald,
the people of South Africa.
Thank you very much for joining us. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you very much yet
Thanks
again.
very much,
That
Mfundo.
is Donald Silamulele speaking to us. Let's shift our focus to this story now. It's currently developing. Muroadi Choloto, who is the former personal assistant to then Free State Premier Ace Magashule, will appear in court on Monday for the 255 million asbestos tender corruption case. Cholota has been extradited from the US, where she has been studying. She has just landed at OR Tambo Airport. Let's bring in SABC News reporter Khayelihle Khumalo to just give us the very latest. Good evening, Khayelihle. Just talk us through what is happening there where you are. She has just landed. Were you able to just catch a glimpse of her or even interact with her?
Well, certainly we did catch a glimpse of her, Mfundo. Just a short while ago, she came through the terminals, of course, flanked by the law enforcement agencies. She was very calm in terms of the demeanor and the composure. And just a short while ago, she has also been whisked away. But also quite a very important moment for the South African law enforcement agencies. As you know, that it's been a very lengthy process to try to have an extradition. They had to go to the United States of America, but thankfully South Africa and the US, they do work together in so many aspects. I think it was relatively easy to make sure that she's able to come through to South Africa. And also most importantly, because when you look at the extradition itself, one of the very main issues was that there is sufficient ground for her to come through to South Africa and face the music.
No, indeed, this is a very significant development because it has been a long journey to get Ms. Cholota into the country. Kailihle, thank you very much for that update. That's my colleague Kailihle Kumalo, who's been at the OR Tambo International Airport there monitoring the arrival of Murwadi Cholota to face the music on that specific case related to the asbestos, 255 million. All right, and that's where I leave it for this evening. Until next time, God bless.